Welcome back. Before we start creating our Lambda function, we need to have a role for our Lambda function. Without a role, we cannot create a Lambda function. So for that reason, let's start with creating a role. Now, I talked about how to create a role in the IAM section of this course, so you can go back and watch that if you haven't watched that. And in that case, we created a role for an EC2 instance, which is a bit different from a role for a Lambda function. A Lambda function doesn't need to create an instance profile. So we'll walk over that. But before that, I want to show you two files that I have currently on my folder. The stopec2.py is our Python code that I'll be using. And the Lambda trust policy is the policy document that I'll be using. So let's start. AWS IAM create role -- role name. I'm gonna call it CLI Lambda and assume role policy document and file, and the name of the file will be the file that I have the document in. Alright, so in the document, let me show you what I have in the document. This is the code that I have in the document. It only says that allow Lambda to assume a role. Alright, so now we have that. We just created a role. Now we need to add certain permissions to that role. Right now the role does not have any permissions. So to do that, we will need to find a certain permission to add. To do that, I will do AWS IAM list roles, and what this does is it will give us a list of all the roles that we have plus the roles that actually it's list policies, and it will give us a list of all the policies that I can add to my role. And out of these policies, I know that I want to add a policy that's with EC2 instances. I want to stop my EC2 instances. So I'm gonna grep. Grep is for find this part in the output. So I'm gonna say EC2 full. Let's see what I get. So after grepping the EC2 full, I get exactly what I want. I get a policy name that says Amazon EC2 full access, and I get the ARN. Now this is what I want. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy the ARN, and I'll attach that to our role we just created. So I'm going to type AWS IAM attach role policy. Now I have to give the role name. The role name was CLI Lambda, and then I need the policy ARN that I just copied, and that is this. So enter. Okay, so now we have the role attached with the policy attached to the role. Now we're finally ready to create our Lambda function. And we're gonna start creating the Lambda function, but before that, what we need to do is I'm gonna list the files that I have. Stop EC2. We need to zip this Python file and create a .zip file, because that's the only type the Lambda function takes with the CLI. And this is important because right now it's only one file. I'm gonna zip it to one file, but you might have dependencies. For example, certain dependencies that is in the code. And in that case, what you can do is you can install the dependencies in a folder and zip everything in that, zip all the files you need together with the code, and then upload that as your Lambda zip file. And in that way, you can get all the dependencies you want with your Lambda function. Right now, we only have one file, and we're gonna zip it anyway. And to do that, you can either go to your GUI folder and zip it. I'm gonna use a command for Linux and for Mac. Now I'm on a Mac, so for Linux it could be the same thing: zip-r lambda. Now this is the name of the zipped file, and stop.ec2.py. So I'm gonna zip this file, which I have right here, and I'm gonna name it Lambda. So you can zip your file by right-clicking on the file you want on your folder, or you could do it this way: enter. So when I list, I have my zip file, which is lambda.zip. I don't need the function anymore, so let's move on. All right, so we're ready to create the function. I'll do AWS Lambda create function dash function name. I'm gonna call it CLI Lambda stop EC2. And the runtime for us is going to be Python 2.7. Now if you work with Node.js, then you can recreate this function on Node.js, but for this lesson we'll be using Python. Like I showed, I have a Python code for this. So runtime is Python 2.7, and role is going to be the role we just created, and this is the ARN of the role, which I'll copy. I'll come back and paste this. Enter. Now this is important. Handler. The handler is named like this. It's going to be the name of the file, the Python file. So stop ec2. You don't need the .py, and dot the name of the main function in that file. So in my case it was lambda underscore handler. And finally the zip file dash zip file, and file B, which stands for file binary, lambda.zip. So let's try this. All right, so this means that the function is created, and I wanted to show you the handler stop ec2.lambda handler. So if I cat the stop ec2 here, our main function right here, def lambda underscore handler. This is the main function, lambda underscore handler. So our handler, when I say dash handler, I have to name it the name of my file dot the main function. Okay, so now we cleared that. Let's clear the screen. I have that function, right? So the function is there now. It has a permission to do a certain thing. Now what I can do is I can test this by invoking this lambda function, and we can do that with the AWS CLI too. So to do that, I'll say AWS. Well, first of all, let me go to my EC2 dashboard, and I have 0 instances running, right? 0. So our goal was to stop EC2 instances. So why not create a few EC2 instances. In my case, I just pasted a code right here that will create 3 EC2 instances. Okay, so image ID is this, instance type this, count 3 count. So when I go back to my console, I have 3 instances running, right? So now we can finally check our function. So I'm going to clear this, and to test our Lambda function, if it works or not, I'm going to say AWS Lambda invoke. That's how we invoke the function. Now, invocation type is, we can have a couple of different invocation types. One is event. If you want to invoke it asynchronously, so you're not waiting for anything, you're just saying trigger this function. So for that we use event, invocation type event. Function name, we need the function name. The function name is going to be whatever function we just created earlier, right? So that is right here. So function name, the function we created earlier, and we also need to put output.txt for the output. Enter. Now we get a status code 202. Now let's go back and check our EC2 instances. Well, it says running, but let's refresh this. And there we go, it's stopping. So the function worked, right? The function actually worked. And that's how you use Lambda function, and you create your Lambda function through the AWS CLI. Now before we stop, I want to show you one thing. Now in the invocation type event, you can also have invocation type of request response. So instead of doing this, I can also say invocation type, because a lot of the times Lambda function will be expecting certain values to actually run the code. So in that case, we can, and we also want to see something back. So in that case, we can have invocation type of request. Request response, and then we can finally add a payload, which is certain values to pass. So payload, I'm going to say key 1 has a value of value 1, and that's it for now. Let's just try with this. I'm going to close this. So I also passed in a payload that will pass in the values to the Lambda function. So I don't have anything in my Lambda function to use this value, so it doesn't matter. But I just wanted to show you that you can pass in values through this way. All right, so that was our lab for the Lambda function. This way you can do everything you need with the AWS CLI, and you can write scripts. By the way, you can write scripts and you can make your workflow a lot more easier, customize your workflow, work everything from the console. You can do a lot more things. Just look at the documentation. I encourage you to look at the documentation, try other things out, and I'll see you in the next video.